Go
Okay. So, hi, Darren. Thank you so much for joining me tonight.
No problem. Thank you for having me on, Megan.
And you're joining from Canada, right?
Yes, London, Ontario, Canada.
Great. So, how far is that from Orlando?
Well, it's about a 20-hour drive.
Okay.
And we drive.
Oh, wow. Okay. That's
yes.
Great.
Yes, we enjoy the drive. So it's one of those things. We've been doing it since my kids were little. And we've just continued. We've flown a few times, but there's just something about everybody jumping in the car and road tripping it all the way down. So
It's probably like good quality time.
yes. And it's funny because we've done it so often that now the kids are like, oh, we're at this point, so we're only this far away now. And it's so they've learned the landmarks and places that we stop and things like that. So for them, it's like, oh, this is great. We now know that we're in Knoxville, so we're about an hour and a half or less from the Georgia Welcome Center and things like that. So
That's really cool. So, how many kids do you have?
I have 4.
And how old are they?
26, 22, almost 21, and 16.
Okay. And so I love talking to other DVC members and like hearing about like what made you join. Were you going to Disney for a while before you joined? Like tell me your story.
So my very first ever trip to Disney was in 1978. We went down, my grandparents had a place in West Palm Beach. So my dad took us down to visit my grandparents, and we drove up to Disney for one day. We had one day to go to Disney World. Back then it was just Magic Kingdom. So that was it. And after that trip, it was freezing cold and raining. And my dad was very much, this is how we're doing it. And there's no getting away from that. So he said, when we go to Magic Kingdom, we have to either take the ferry boat or the monorail. We could use one or the other for the way there, and the opposite would be the way back. So we jumped on the monorail, took that to the park. And back then, the ferry boats to get back to TTC were all open. It was just benches. And it was pouring rain and freezing cold, and he made us get on the ferry boat and ride that back. So then we were freezing cold and soaked for the car ride back to West Palm Beach, which was almost 4 hours.
Oh, wow.
So that was the first time I ever gone to Disney. And then my ex-wife, her family, they had gone a bunch of times. And I'm like, really, Disney? Like, why do you go there? Because I hadn't been in so long. So I was really not in touch with anything Disney. And so in 96, they were going as a family trip in December for Christmas. They're like, oh, you've got to come with us. You got to come with us. You got to come with us. I'm like, I'm not going to Disney. I'm sorry, but I'm not going to Disney. So 2 weeks beforehand, they finally convinced me to go. We flew down out of Detroit. We stayed at All Star Sports, and I was hooked. I guess staying on property and seeing everything that was there now, like at that time, like there was Epcot, back then it was MGM Studios and all the stuff that they had done in Magic Kingdom. I was like, oh, wow, this is not at all what I remember. It's not rainy. It's not cold. I'm not being told that I have to go here. I have to be there. And so at that point, my wife at the time, we went and did a tour of DVC because Old Key West was the original resort. So we thought we'll take an afternoon and we'll go over and look at it. So we toured it in 96. We're like, that's a really cool idea. Like, if we're going to come down here more, this is something we should maybe look at. We didn't do it because we were both in school at the time still. We were both finishing up school. So then when we actually got married, so we weren't married yet. In 98, when we got married, we went to Disney for 3 weeks on our honeymoon. And we toured again.
Awesome.
Yes. So then we toured again. And it was like, okay, this is definitely something we have to do. We were just finishing up school and we had student loans. So, and at that time, I wish, and she at the time was like, why didn't we just do it then in 98? Because at the time, the incentive was whatever you had paid to stay on property was taken right off the top of the purchase price.
Wow.
And we had stayed on property at Disney for 3 weeks. So, and at that time, it was only $7,000 to buy 150 points or 160 points, whichever. I forget exactly what it was at the time, but so 3,000 of that would have come right off the top from all the money that we had spent on the Disney resorts already. We got home, we hummed and hawed, and then finally we took all the kids back down and we talked to our guide and had all the paperwork sent to us. So then in late 2000, we bought, and then our first on property DVC stay was December of 2001. We stayed in Wilderness Lodge at the villas in a studio for the first week. And then the second week we stayed in a studio at Boardwalk. And it was like, okay, because at the time, the regular resorts didn't have fridges. They didn't have coffee makers. They didn't have microwaves. So even a studio was like basically an upgrade. And we got doing the numbers and we thought about it. And for what we were paying for regular resorts to stay at All Stars, and we had stayed previously at Coronado, and at the time it was called Dixie Landings. And we ran the numbers and it's like, you know what? For what we're going to pay for this and what paying cash for even a studio is, after 3 trips, because we would go for 2 weeks. So after 3 trips, it's like, this is already paid for itself because the cash cost is greater than what it's costing us to buy the points. So at that point, like when we ran those numbers, it was like, this is a no-brainer. This is what we're doing. Like, send us the documents. Let's get this going. And back then they actually FedExed it to you, and it came with like special DVC member pens that were like all nice pens. And yeah, so now they just send it to you all in an email. You e-sign everything and you send it back. So I still have the pens. I still have the original bag that everything came in, the old original like contract documents and everything with sign at Mickey's head and all that stuff. So yeah.
So cool. So how often do you guys go? Do you do one big trip a year, or do you go more than once? Or
so for the longest time, it was one longer trip that would be anywhere from 14 to 21 days. And the way we would maximize points, especially with the kids, we would check in on Sunday, check out on the Friday. Then we would go out to like Cocoa Beach or wherever, go for the weekend, go and do all the nature stuff that we like, because we would go to the wildlife refuge out at Merritt Island, go down to Myakka River State Park, places like that. Then come back and check back in on the Sunday and stay through until the next Friday, and then either come home, or if we were extending for an additional week, then we would go out to the other coast and so on. Sorry, go ahead.
That's such a good tip.
Yes, and it's something that a lot of people don't realize, and it also allows you to see other things in Florida, not just the parks all the time. And doing it that way, back then we would buy a 10-day hopper, which was fairly inexpensive, and we would split that out over that number of days. So you would have your down days where you could go to the outlet mall, you could go to the water parks or whatever. So we would always buy the 10-day hopper with no expiry and the water parks. So then we would do we would get 2 water park days. So we would use 1 water park day on the middle week or the second week, and then we would save the extra 5 days and another water park day for the next year's trip. So we always had 2 trips covered out of a 10-day pass. Now we buy annual passes, so that's even easier. But at that time, the 10-day pass, it was $280 US for a 10-day pass with hopping, park hopping and no expiry and water parks all included. So
that's amazing. It's
yes.
changed a lot.
Oh, it sure has. Yes. Now you're like, it's going to be, how much? Oh yeah.
I know. Have you guys stayed at all of the DVC resorts?
So to date, we've stayed at Old Key West many times, Bay Lake Tower, Wilderness Lodge, Beach Club. We only just stayed at Beach Club for the first time a year ago, January, actually. We stayed there over marathon weekend, actually. So it was busy, but we didn't mind. So, and we've stayed the only ones. So yeah, Grand Floridian, Wilderness Lodge, Bay Lake, Old Key West, Beach Club, Boardwalk. Haven't stayed at Poly, and we haven't stayed at Riviera yet. Those are the only 2 we haven't stayed at.
Okay.
So
what's your favorite?
So my absolute favorite is Boardwalk. I just love the area. I love being close to both Epcot and I still call it MGM, but it's Hollywood Studios. So I like being in the middle of those two. I love walking over to Epcot. It's my favorite park. So for me, that location is the best. I love the pool at Beach Club, but I just love the entire atmosphere in and around Boardwalk. So to me, that's always been my favorite. Next runner up would be Old Key West, just based on the nostalgia of the resort and the room sizes. Like they're the largest rooms of all the resorts on property for DVC. So it kind of gets a win in that category. My kids all love the size of the rooms and the giant hot tub. We'd come back to the room and they're like, can we go in the hot tub?
Yes.
So
That's awesome. You were just mentioning, like right before I hit record, about your trip. You did your vow renewal and you got the Grand Villa there. Like, what was that like?
It was absolutely massive. On our YouTube channel, we actually did a room tour of the Grand Villa. So we did a full complete tour of the entire room. So if anyone wants to watch that, they're welcome to go and check it out.
I'll have to put a link here for it.
That would be great. Thank you. Yeah, I couldn't believe it. Like it has a full 10-person dining room table, and then a full big like loft area that you look down over to the living room from upstairs, 2 full bedrooms upstairs, bathroom in every room, bathroom just inside the front door, and then you've got your master bathroom as well. So there's lots of washrooms. Nobody's fighting over bathroom time, and so lots of sleeping area.
It looks beautiful.
Oh, it was amazing. Yes, it really was. And that's the other great thing about DVC that people don't realize, because when they start looking at cost of a resort, the cost of your meals because you're staying in a resort, as soon as you look at DVC, you then are like, okay, so if I use a few extra points, I can get a room that has a washer and dryer in it, which means I'm packing less.
That's
because
my favorite part.
and you come home with clean clothes. You're not getting home and doing 14 loads of laundry because you didn't have anywhere to wash everything. And even if you're staying in a studio, you may not have a washer and dryer in your room, but at the pools on all the DVC resorts are free laundry facilities for the members and for people staying there. So you still get free laundry anyway. And then so it cuts down on the amount you have to pack, cuts down on your food costs because you can run to the grocery store or have groceries delivered. If you didn't drive, you can have groceries delivered to the resort. Then you're guaranteed that you're going to get things that, if you're traveling with your kids, they're going to eat, especially if you have picky eaters. I did. And it was, in the parks, it was, I want chicken strips. Well, you need to have something other than chicken strips. So doing it that way, you have a full kitchen so you can make meals for what you want and what everyone's going to eat. Plus you have a full fridge so you can have your water and stuff in the fridge. You can take it with you because they don't mind if you take snacks and lunch and stuff with you into the parks. So you pack a little cooler bag. We would throw that on the back of the stroller with water in it and juice boxes. We'd make up sandwiches and take granola bars. There's even more cost cutting and cost savings for you. So it just, the whole grand scheme of how it works, just if you can get past looking at that initial price tag,
yep,
it really makes sense, because I looked at it of, okay, my room costs, if I want to stay deluxe, I'm paying at least $800 a night. Then if you upgrade to a 1-bedroom or a 2-bedroom or anything, you're then, your costs go up. And I mean, as you know, as a DVC member, if you've looked at cash costs for some rooms, it can be up to $3,000 a night.
Oh yeah,
so,
expensive. Yes.
The Grand Villa, we did the cash cost for when we were there in February. And if we were to pay cash for that with taxes, it would have been $17,000 for that 5-night stay.
Wow.
Yeah. And you tell people that and they're like, what? So even to buy a resale contract, you can get them for fairly inexpensive. You can buy a 150 point Old Key West resale contract now for You can get them on average between $85 and $90 a point.
That's
You're
great.
going to lose, you're going to lose out on some of the benefits of DVC by buying resale. But if you're looking at it from a cost saving side of things, of your food costs, your resort costs, and things like that, it makes sense.
Oh,
So,
definitely.
yeah.
Do you guys? I'm always curious about what people do with the kitchens. Do you guys cook a lot when you're there?
Every day.
What meals do you usually cook? And I love your idea of bringing the sandwiches into the park. That's such a good idea.
We learned that when the kids were little. It
Yeah.
was so much more convenient because we would just bring a little cooler bag and we would hang it on the back of the stroller or put it under the stroller. And yeah, you can take then what the kids will eat, and it's not costing you, $80, $90, depending on how many people you have with you. So
smart. I love that idea.
yes. So we will make breakfast in the room every morning, whether it's just waffles or we do, French toast or whatever the case may be, bowl of cereal. And then we always do dinner at the room at night. Now, a couple times we've actually, because we drive, we would bring a crock pot with us and do throw a roast in there and let it cook all day. Then you come back to the room at night, and we're not the type of family that stops and then goes back to the room. We go from rope drop to park closing. So oftentimes we're getting back and eating dinner at 1:00 in the morning, but yeah, that's okay. So being able to go back and have dinner ready for you, or make, even just make your dinner, whether it's, you throw something in the oven, whether it's a lasagna or whatever the case may be, you take it out before you go to the park, you let it thaw all day, you throw it in the oven for 20 minutes and you're good. You've got food. You make yourself pasta or some chicken or whatever the case may be. Like, it just, you then know what you're eating, what you're preparing. And especially, and the other thing is food allergies, because there's a lot of kids now with food allergies.
Oh, yeah.
And there's never a guarantee that it's going to be allergy free. When you've got that many people handling food, you can't guarantee that what's coming out of the kitchen is not going to have come in contact with nuts or whatever. So this way you're kind of a little more at ease, knowing that what your kids are getting isn't going to send them to the hospital.
No, that's great. And I love the idea of bringing the crock pot. That's a really smart thing. Yeah.
And if you forget to bring it, you can go to Walmart and buy one for $19. So
that's true. That's great.
Yeah. And we've done that, and we've just left it in the room, and then they just put it underneath the cabinet and it stays for the next people. So
that's nice.
Yeah.
It's really good.
Yeah.
Do you guys have any traditions that you do on every trip? Like, you have to go to a certain place or?
Yes. So when the kids were little, arrival day was always Chef Mickey's. Always Chef Mickey's. Now that they're a little older, they all love Earl of Sandwich. So on arrival day, it's Downtown Disney, Earl of Sandwich, sprinkles, cupcakes, back to the room. And then we will do a monorail tour. So we'll go back to the room, get changed, and then do the monorail loop. And depending on where we're staying, we will go up to the observation deck at Bay Lake Tower or stand over at the Contemporary and watch fireworks at Magic Kingdom. That's just one of our things that we really like to do. It's one of our traditions. So
I love that. Have you been to the member lounge at the top of Bay Lake Tower yet?
Yes. Yeah. Been a few times. Haven't been since they changed it to the Villains Lounge, but that'll be our next trip. We're gonna try and get in. So
that's on my list also.
Going over COVID, a lot of things were not really available still, so that made it a little tougher. But
yeah, I'm curious. My kids right now are 8 and 13, and I'm wondering, if they're going to go through a period of not wanting to go to Disney. Are your kids have they always been all in, or how's that been?
So that's a good question, because I have friends whose kids were gung-ho for Disney when they were younger, and then it got to that point where they're like, I'm 16, and what do I want to go there for? I'm going to stay home and hang out with my friends. But thankfully, my kids have all been like, let's go. They're the ones that are pushing, when are we going next? When are we going next? When are we going next? So I've been lucky that way.
That's great. I'm hoping that will happen in my house too.
Well, and then another tradition I have for the kids is on their 18th birthday, I take them and one friend. The other kids stay home, but them and a friend, I take them down and we go to Disney for them for their birthday. And then we do the same for their graduation trips. So,
That's so nice.
yeah.
So
So
nice.
one more to go on the 18th birthday. She just turned 16 though, so a couple more years yet.
Yeah. Have you added on points since you bought your original contract?
Oh, yes.
I haven't done that yet, but it's so tempting. I'm always looking.
Oh, I know. And it's like, so we bought and sold a bunch of contracts and then added on some here and there. The original contract that my ex-wife and I bought was at Hilton Head Island because at the time they had a promo going on for that. And it was like $62 a point to buy.
Wow.
Yes. So we bought 150 points there. Within 6 months, we had added 50 points on for Saratoga Springs. And then when we went through our divorce, we couldn't decide who was going to keep the points. I put forth a proposal of, I'll keep the points and pay for them. The years you want to go and take the kids, you pay the annual dues that year. I'll pay them the years I take them. We couldn't agree on that. So then we ended up selling the points. And then I bought more points again at Vero Beach. I bought points with my dad and my sister. A little piece of advice, buying points with family, not really the greatest idea because everybody then it's like, well, I want to go at this time and you want to go at this time, but my trip's going to use this many points and your trip's going to use more. So how are we going to figure out who gets the more points next time? And so it just, we did that for about 4 years and then I'm like, nope. So then my wife, Megan, and I, we were like, okay, we're done with that whole school of thought. We bought an old QS contract. And then my dad and my sister and I sold off the other contract from Vero Beach. And then we just added on at Old Key West. And we're in the process of adding on again. We're looking for Bay Lake or the Wilderness Lodge. So
that's great. So exciting.
Yeah. Yes. And we've stayed the Val. Actually, it's funny because people always think Animal Kingdom Lodge is really expensive for points. But if you stay in Jumbo House in the value rooms, you can get a value 1-bedroom. We were there last year in January with my 22-year-old daughter. We got a 1-bedroom value in Jumbo House. It was a Savannah view. And it was like 2 points a night more than getting a studio.
I've seen that. Was that a hard room to get?
Actually, I logged in, looked for them. It came up. I booked it, and that was at 7 months because I wasn't an owner at Animal Kingdom, so I had to wait for 7 months. So
that's great.
Yes, so there's little keys to saving points here and there and getting the most out of them. So
when you've added on, do you make sure you have the same use year for your contracts or just whatever?
No, I'll go with whatever because then you're always going to be getting an allotment throughout the year. So it's kind of nice because then you're not like, oh, well, I've used my points or I've rented out my points. I got to wait till next December before I can do much of anything again. So it's nice to have some come in like February, some come in August. And so then you've constantly got your points being replenished. So
think about the next trip.
Yes, exactly. Because we always book at least a year in advance. Like we're not even on the trip that we're going on and we're starting to plan next year's trip. That's how.
Yes, right. So how long ago did you do your vow renewal trip?
We just did that this past February, actually.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
I saw some of your YouTube clips of that. It looked great.
Oh, it was so much fun.
What special things did you do for that trip?
So my wife's mom and her grandma had both passed away. So my wife's mom passed away before we actually got to do the vow renewal.
I'm sorry to hear that.
Yeah. So what we did is she took a picture of her grandma and a picture of her mom, and they set aside a spot on the front pew for them for the photos. And then she wore her grandma's engagement ring that she had gotten when she got engaged. So just little things like that. So
That's great. And
yes.
do you have a lot of people with you for this?
We actually kept it pretty small. I think we only had like 35, 40 people there.
That's
So
a good number.
yeah. So it was a lot of fun. And um, Disney Fine Art Photography, oh my God, they did such an amazing job. So people will look at the vow renewal side of things and the wedding side and think, oh my gosh, this is so expensive. And I'm not going to lie, it is expensive. But when you look at the price, that includes the photography side of it,
Mhm.
which if you try to find a photographer outside of something like that, and especially in the Orlando area, that can get very expensive. So they actually took us up on the monorail platform at Grand Floridian, had them hold the monorail for about 5 minutes so we could do photos on the monorail.
Wow.
Yes. So, and then we had the run of the place for the whole lobby and the grand staircase and the grand piano out in the center of the atrium says do not touch. She's like, no, you're fine, you can lean on it, lay on it. I was like, but it said, she's like, nope, I'm telling you, you're good. So
Wow. What time of day was it? I'm always curious. My daughter and I
we
love the show where they do the Disney weddings and
yeah,
renewals, and I always
our
wonder how they
our
do it.
vow renewal was at 9:30 in the morning.
Okay.
So we wanted an early morning one because then the gentleman that did perform the vow renewal for us, he's actually the one that married us on the beach out near Tampa when we got married originally. He's a good friend of mine. And he owns two pizza places out in Tampa and in Wesley Chapel. So we were taking everyone there to go for lunch. So we wanted early morning so that we could then go there. And then we went and walked around on the beach for a while. And then, so
Oh, sounds great.
it was fun. It was a lot of fun.
So what's your next trip that's coming up?
So we have Disneyland booked for December.
Oh,
Yes.
have you been there before?
So that was my wife, Megan, and I, that was our first date.
Oh,
I flew out to visit, and that was our first official date. We went to Disneyland. So
that's really nice. And now you're back as married couple.
yes, yeah. So there's that one, and then providing everything goes all right with work for holiday time, we are heading back down in March to Florida. So those are our next two Disney related trips. So
Sounds great. You mentioned Vero Beach before. Have you been to like the Hilton Head, DVC, and Vero Beach?
I've been to Hilton Head. So in 2008, we went down, and we actually did a camping trip heading down to Florida. So we stopped and camped in Kentucky. We stopped and camped in Tennessee in the Gatlinburg area. Then we stopped and camped in Savannah, Georgia at Skidaway State Park. So from there, it was only a 40-minute drive to go to Hilton Head. So we drove up and toured the resort and hung out at the at Hilton Head for a while. They took us around and showed us all the rooms. They actually provided us with lunch, and they gave my daughters some collector pins from Hilton Head. So yeah, I haven't stayed, but I've actually been to the resort. It's really nice. It actually very much reminds me of Old Key West, like room layout and stuff. So never been to Vero though.
We're always tempted to try those, but I feel like we need more points because
Yeah,
I don't want to not have the Disney trip.
I know, and that's the problem because we always thought when the kids were younger, we're like, oh well, we'll just for our weekend we'll go to Vero Beach, and then it's like, but we want to continue. We want this trip to be a little longer. We want to cover off this. So no, then we end up going to Cocoa Beach or wherever and just staying at like Holiday Inn or Ramada, and so. But if you're going to look at Vero, apparently I think it's September, they have a night where when the sea turtles all come in and lay their eggs. So they let people go out and watch, and then they also do a thing where because there's a marine laboratory or something down that way. And so to help the species, they will actually dig up the eggs and put them in incubators and then have the turtles released. And they'll do a thing or they used to, where when it comes time to release them, they release them on the same beach so that the babies know to come back to that spot. So
That must be really neat to be there to see that.
yeah, I think it would be. It would be kind of cool, because I know in 2014, yes, 2014, I think it was one of those two trips. For my daughter's 18th birthday, we went out to Cocoa Beach, and they had stakes on the beach with like caution tape saying that they were turtle nests, so they were all blocked off. And it gave the time of when the turtle actually dug the nest, laid the eggs, the estimated time when they were going to hatch and stuff like that. So they would allow people to come back out to the beach and watch this, but yeah, they made sure to keep everyone kind of out of the area. So
That's really neat.
yeah.
How about Alani? Have you been there, or do you think you'll ever go there?
I have not. I'm not a big beach person. When we do go to the beach, when we go to Cocoa Beach and stuff, we'll go and we'll wander up and down the beach for about an hour, and that's the extent of our beach time. I do want to go there so that I can say I've been and I can say I've stayed at the resort, but I'm trying to find, other than maybe going to play golf and maybe a Jeep tour, trying to figure out exactly what's there that will keep my interest up. Because we've done the cruise as well, and I just kind of don't like sitting around. As I said, we're a family that likes to be at the park from rope drop to close. That's our kind of relaxing time. And people are like, how can that be relaxing? It just is. I don't know. It's just the way we find it relaxing. So, but we do plan to go, because I would like to check out the resort and see what it's like. So,
and I've heard the Dole Plantation is a trip you can take.
Yes. And I want to find out if you can do some deep sea fishing. I would like to do that too.
Yeah.
So
that's on my list also. One day to see Alani. Yeah.
Yes. So that is definitely a goal, is to get back out there, because my wife's been to Hawaii a couple times, and she's like, you would really like it. You just got to come at least once. So I will go at least once. See what I think.
That's good. What time? So we're starting to be rope drop people. We've been more sleeping in on many of the trips and going later, but if you want to rope drop, what time do you get up? Like, how many hours before the park opens?
We're up by 6 a.m. to get everyone ready. Yep. Because then first bus arrives to pick you up at the resort and gets you to the resort about 25-30 minutes prior to rope drop. So then you get all checked in, and then you funnel your way down through Main Street, and then they've got everything roped off, and then at like whatever time they do the rope drop at, be it 8 o'clock or whatever, they open up the rope and off you go. Now for rope drop at Magic Kingdom, it's basically from Mine Train over to Tomorrowland that's open with attractions. Frontierland and stuff, the attractions aren't open yet, so there's no one over there, but it's great if you want to go over and do photo ops. So if you want to get pictures taken, now means Splash Mountain's down for refurbishment now to be changed, but beforehand you could go and stand on the bridge and get pictures of the kids and everyone, and without anybody there, so you didn't have to fight 1,000 other people to get your photo in front of the drop and Splash Mountain on the bridge. So, or in front of Big Thunder, and then the geyser that's at the side of Big Thunder Mountain, it still goes off, so you can get your family over there and have your photos there. And oftentimes you will see some photo pass photographers wandering around over there, and they will take your photo. So
that's a really good tip.
Going as many times and as often as we do, we've kind of sorted all of these things out.
Yes. No, I love that. That's why I like talking to people that go a lot. You learn so many good things.
Yes. And I love being able to pass along some of these tips that a lot of people would never think of. Yeah. I mean, you can go through all the Disney boards you want, but there's always going to be something that, people will miss an answer, because you'll get 700-800 people answering. By the time you've come back to look at it, chances are you're not scrolling through the 700 replies. So you may miss the actual answer you're looking for. So when you can sit and listen to a podcast or watch a video and see what's what with that, I find that's a little easier.
Yeah, that's great. Do you feel like having gone for all these years and going rope drop to, close, that you've done everything, or are there still things that are?
No, there's still things that, every time you're there, you're like, we got to get on that. And even if we did it 2 trips ago, it's like, okay, we definitely got to get back onto that. And then you get so busy doing things, running around, that you miss out on something. Or what we'll do is we'll plan for rope drop. We'll hit Space Mountain, and then we'll do People Mover. Then we'll go over to Mine Train. And then we will leave the other attractions like Winnie the Pooh and Small World and stuff like that for extra magic hours at night. So
that was another question I had. Do you feel like you really have like a plan for your trip, like each day, what you're going to do specifically, or do you more keep it loose and just see how you feel?
We have done both ways. I like to plan. I am a planner. I like to be like, okay, this is where we're going first. This is what we're going to hit. Then we'll move our way over to, whatever the plan is. The other thing that I like to do, and when the kids were little, is we would give them for each park day. So for Magic Kingdom Day, we would say, okay, Paige, what is the attraction you want to go to? So you get to pick and plan what we're going to do for the morning. We're going to go to whatever attraction you want to do and one show. So that way the kids got to feel like they were actually part of the planning and actually involved in it from a young age. So I think that helped for my kids wanting to go more often, is because they felt like they were part of the whole process.
I love that idea. That's really nice.
Yeah. And another thing that we would do with the kids when they were little is we would do a paper chain. So we would do a countdown chain, and each day they would take a link off. And on certain days inside, we would write, so Mickey waffles for dinner, or Disney movie night, or whatever, Disney trivia, or any, like, just things like that. And so it kind of kept things going, Disney family movie night, and just all kinds of different things. And they loved the sing-along songs when they were younger too. So,
well, looking forward to the trip for me is like half the fun. I love the planning and thinking about it. I love what you're talking about with the paper chain. That's so great.
yeah. So we would make a big paper chain, and that was something they loved doing. We would sit down for like a couple hours at night, and just kids would help cut up all the paper, write up. We would use their ideas of what they wanted to put on each link for, what activity we were going to do. So
How far in advance do you start it? Like a month or 2 months or?
like at 200 days.
Oh, I love that. Really? Yeah, that's great.
Yeah. So it's a very long chain, but it's
Well, it keeps the excitement going.
absolutely, yes, it sure does. So, and if there happened to be a Disney movie that was coming out, one of the links would be, we would look at that timeline, and it'd be, go to the movies for whatever movie happened to be playing, or the drive-in or whatever, because we still have a drive-in here. So
That's great. Do you guys have any special Disney souvenirs that you try to always get? Like, do you ever do pins or, I don't know, t-shirts or anything like that?
the kids have pin books beyond belief. Yes. So we have lots and lots of pins. My oldest daughter loved the pressed pennies. So she's got probably 5 or 6 of the books full of pressed pennies and the pressed quarters. So yeah, just stuff like that. Yep.
So fun.
Yes.
Well, I love all these tips that you've given me, and anyone that would watch. Do you have any final tips to share, or I don't know?
The biggest one that I go by this is, people get to Disney and they get overwhelmed because they try to do everything. They think, I've got a week and I need to do everything. You're not going to be able to do everything, and as they go through, they start to get too wound up, and the littlest thing can set them off. You know what? You're the happiest place on earth. Go
Yes.
enjoy it. And if you don't get to do everything that you want to that day, just know that your kids have been there. They're enjoying the time you're spending together as a family. Like, that's the biggest thing. And just get as many photos as you can of everybody, especially the kids, because they grow up way too fast. I still look at my kids when they were, three and under. We started taking them at 8 months old, and now they're all like 20s and almost like late teens. So just enjoy every minute, and just remember, you're on holidays with your family. Someone is grumpy, just let it roll off your back and just enjoy your time.
It's so true. It's so easy to get really caught up in your agenda.
Yeah. Yes. That's why we're planners, but we know that, you know what? Not everything's going to go exactly to your plan, to your wants and what you figure you need. And if it doesn't, guess what? You've still got the rest of the day, and you've still got the memories you've made all morning or up to that point. Just remember those, because you know what? You'll sit down and it'll put a big smile on your face after. And Memory Maker is another one. Always make sure to get that, because you get all the attraction photos, all the PhotoPass photographer photos, and those things. When you get back to the room at night, you can load them up on your phone and look at them. And it's like, oh, it helps. If you've had a day where one of the kids has had a meltdown or whatever, you look at the photos after and you're like, you see the smiles, and it just makes everything so much better.
Yes. I love looking back at my Disney pictures. I always look at them like in the morning, and it starts out my day in a great way.
Well, and one other weird thing. So up here, taking kids out of school for trips like that was never an issue. The teachers were always like, oh, this is awesome. Especially if you're driving, they're going to get to see geography that a lot of kids won't ever see. When they get to the parks, they're going to get to meet people from around the world that they may not get a chance to travel to. So these are all educational things. And the teachers would always be like, when you get back, have them put together a slideshow with some music, and we will show it to the class of the stuff that you've done. So when we got home, we would let the kids go through and pick out the photos they wanted on it. We'd make it about 15 minutes long, so it didn't take up a whole class, and put background music to it and have captions with it and stuff. And the kids would take it to school with them and show their classmates, and then they would talk about the different countries that these people were from. Or like in Epcot, it was like, oh, well, we went to the Germany pavilion, and they would give them facts about Germany and things that were there that we would learn from the employees and the staff. So like all the cast members were great with that.
That's such a good idea.
So yeah, it was a lot of fun.
That's great. I think someone's turning my doorknob. Exactly, my time might be up. I really appreciate you taking the time to talk to me.
No problem. No problem.
Everything that you were talking about, and yeah, it's just so fun to talk to another DVC person.
Absolutely, yes, I enjoy it. I could talk Disney for days, not just hours, days.
It's great. It's great. It's the best thing to talk about.
Yes. And the other thing too is like the driving side of things. I drove for 10 years with the kids from the time my youngest was 1.5. As a single dad, we drove to Disney every year. So, I mean, if people listen and they have questions about the drive, and especially driving with kids, if they requested an episode about something like that, I'd be happy to go over that kind of stuff with you too. So, and any tips and tricks that we found for that.
Maybe will you share what is the best way for people to get in touch with you? Like, would it be through Instagram or YouTube?
Yeah, they can find us on Instagram. We're Magical Vacation Memories. So that's our YouTube as well. And our Gmail is magicalvacationmemories@gmail.com.
That's great. Well, thank you so much, Darren.
Oh,
And
you're very welcome. Thank you for having me on. It's great. I love it.
thank you. I'll see you around.
Yes. Have a magical rest of your evening.
That's right. You as well.
I will. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.